Some of the biggest rock news in recent weeks has most certainly been the announcement of the Best of All Worlds tour next summer, featuring Sammy Hagar, Michael Anthony, Joe Satriani, and Jason Bonham, performing a majority of Van Halen songs live, including a song or two from the David Lee Roth era. Upon Hagar and company making the announcement a couple of weeks ago live on the Howard Stern show, he also mentioned that various other musicians will be joining them from city to city on stage every night for a couple of songs, even extending an invite to DLR himself, to which he promptly accepted, although now there's apparently some miscommunication over whether Sammy meant just for one show and David Lee Roth supposedly thinking it was an invite for the whole tour, although knowing him, he probably is just trolling. Regardless, it got me thinking about the over-the-top, dramatic, and disastrous Heavyweight Champs of Rock and Roll tour that took place in 2002. I guess if we're being accurate, though, we should say the full name of the tour, which was the Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth Tour 2002. Song for song, the Heavyweight Champs of Rock and Roll. My God, what a name. Which saw both Roth and Hagar performing their respective eras of Van Halen, which just proves exactly why the two should never tour together again, probably never even perform at the same show ever again. Let's dive in. When Sammy and the rest of the guys appeared on Howard Stern to announce the Best of All Worlds tour and quote-unquote invited DLR to appear at a show, Roth promptly responded in a statement to Van Halen News Desk saying, "I'm ready to go. Let's do this." Now, to me, and the way that I heard it, and I did hear it live on Howard Stern that morning, I never took it that Hagar was inviting Roth for the entire tour. Not to mention, that's not even how that type of thing is done. I mean, you got to get agents and managers, all that kind of stuff involved. So I guess I don't really understand quite where that theory comes from. But when he was asked on social media about Roth's response to the Van Halen News Desk, Hagar responded to the fans saying, quote, "He can come out and sing a song on a show or two if he can remember the words. He's not invited on the tour. No fucking way. It was to sing a song with us somewhere like a lot of singers, guitarists, etc. are going to do on this tour. I know better than to have him on tour again. Been there, done that." In a separate comment, he adds, "He ain't coming out with me again. Maybe one show, a song or two, if he remembers the words." Of course, the feud between the two is, at this point, decades old, but certainly heavily fueled from the very ill-fated Sam and Dave tour that took place back in the summer of 2002, but it actually took a couple of attempts to make it happen. Hagar had initially reached out to Roth with a similar idea back in 1997, which would have been just about a year or so after Hagar had left Van Halen, and another Van Halen attempt to work with David Lee Roth had fallen apart, which of course resulted in Extreme frontman Gary Cherone fronting the band for a very, very short time, putting out Van Halen 3. But Dave at that time declined to focus on both his book, and I believe he did a greatest hits tour or something like that around the same time. But when the opportunity presented itself again in the early 2000s, both parties were on board, and oh boy, was that a massive mistake. At a press conference held at LA's Sky Bar to announce the co-headline tour, the differences between the two could not have been any more apparent, even just looking at the way that they were dressed, as Sammy showed up in a yellow Cabo Wabo shirt with red pants, not too far from how he looked, especially at that time. And then, of course, David Lee Roth rolls up decked out in all black, appearing alongside both a dwarf in an Andy Warhol costume, as well as the Dahm triplets, which were a group of identical triplets who were also Playboy Playmates.
We're Dave's girls. Yeah. We're Dave's kitty cats, he said.
During the press conference, Roth had this to say about the co-headline run. "The time was wrong. Now the time is right. It's completely unpredictable." He continued, "Sam and I are like fraternity brothers that have been through the same shitty hazing. There's a rivalry between us, so the audience gets the absolute best out of both of us. You have to think of it as two title fights with no undercard. This is a co-headlining tour here. We'll flip a coin, and the winner will headline opening night, and then we'll flip-flop. Just a few weeks prior to the tour's kickoff in May of that year, 2002, David Lee Roth appeared on The Howard Stern Show, which it really is amazing how much Howard Stern is tied into all of this, with Hagar also appearing, but via phone. He was not in studio with Dave. Howard actually had the honor to flip the coin to determine who would close the first night of the tour, which is actually in my neck of the woods, Blossom Music Center in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Hagar decided to pick heads, with Roth choosing tails, and the winner being...
I don't even know how to flip a coin.
Just go.
Come on.
Here we go.
Put
Here we
it
go.
on your thumb. Get it up there. Oh my God, that was
He
a
really
terrible
doesn't.
Now
coin.
which one is this?
Oh,
What is that?
again. What are
Is
you
that,
doing?
Oh, it's tails. It's tails.
I headline.
Dave wins.
Tails. It headlines.
I headline. It's just
It
like
headlines.
biblical.
It
Dave
headlines.
closes the first night. Is that right, Dave? Is that what you...
I close the first night.
Right the hell on.
I'll see you there.
With Roth closing out the first night of the tour before flip-flopping with Hagar for the rest of the run, except for L.A., which we'll get into here in a little bit. His set list across the entire run focused almost exclusively on Van Halen, with only one solo song thrown in, and of course, I'm sure you can guess, it was Yankee Rose. Hagar, on the other hand, did a little bit more of a career-spanning set list. Looking at some of the set lists on Setlist FM, I'd say about 2/3 of his show were Van Halen songs, mixed in with a few of his solo hits. He also had Van Halen bassist Michael Anthony on stage at a few shows, who was actually still a part of Van Halen at the time. This was a few years before he was replaced by Eddie's son Wolfgang. And I believe he brought out Gary Cherone in Boston as well to do a few songs, but I didn't see anything on Setlist FM about it. Obviously, I wasn't there. I was like 7 or something at the time, so not 100% on that, but it would make sense if that is the case. Gary Cherone is from Boston. According to Sammy, he attempted to coordinate both he and Roth doing a few songs together on stage every night, but of course to no avail, recalling in his book, "Right at the start, he rejected my suggestion that we sing a few songs together and make it a friendly thing. He envisioned something more along the lines of WWF SmackDown." In his documentary, Sammy Hagar and the Wabaritas, The Long Road to Cabo, he discusses how on the second night of the tour in Michigan, Kid Rock attempted to help out and get this thing put together, recalling, "Kid Rock is going, 'You guys got to do one for the fans. I came here tonight wanting to see you guys get on stage and do a duet. You're letting us down. You're letting the fans down.' He brought up a wonderful point, you know? And I said, 'You're absolutely right. Let's talk to Dave.' And Dave is sitting there going, 'Well, sure, Sam, let's do something then.' So Dave agrees, and I'm going, 'All right, the kid put it together. Thanks, kid. You're awesome.' The next night, Dave goes, 'My throat's sore and I can't do it.' I went over to see him to say, 'Hey, let's work something out. What do you want to do? What song?' And he backed out of it. Then the next night, he backed out of it. So finally, it became a running joke. I used to go beat on his dressing room, and he wouldn't even answer the door. And I'd say, 'Yo, Diamond, you ready tonight? You ready to go out and do it?' You have to have a sense of humor about it."
Sam's always banging on the windshield. Bottle of tequila on one hand and his dick in the other.
Things would only go downhill from there for the remainder of the tour, which at this point it was so early on into the run. It was basically the entire tour, with things happening throughout the run, such as 2 shows back-to-back in L.A., because DLR insisted that he had to close one night in Los Angeles, which honestly, that does make a little bit of sense to me. A lot of sense, really, with David Lee Roth being from there, Van Halen being from there. That I don't have too much of a problem with. But Hagar has also accused Roth of canceling a New York City show, insisting that he would only play the market if the show was at Madison Square Garden, and he closed the night, he being David Lee Roth, even though it wasn't his turn to close the night out. I will say, I came across this clip of Sammy bitching about his dressing room and his catering room and how small both of the rooms were. I believe it was at the LA venue, which was the Universal Amphitheater. But then they showed Dave's dressing room, and then they cut to his entrance into the venue, and my God, what a fucking ego trip this guy was on. The final 2 shows of the disastrous run, which I believe were both in upstate New York, wound up getting canceled. I think Sammy Hagar was sick at the time, but not before both Roth and Hagar appeared at the MTV VMAs that year, 2002, to present the award for Best Rock Video, and Holy shit, is it awkward. I mean, Sammy's throwing shade. Diamond Dave is being Diamond Dave. It's just a fucking mess. It's absolutely fantastic.
Well, I'm supposed to say, Dave, relax. All these people aren't here to see you. You know what I'm
Look
saying?
at all the people here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you who they're here to see, Sam. They're here to see the front bumper of American popular culture as it is happening, baby.
I didn't quite understand that, but I think it's what Dave really means. It's really good to see you after 55 shows, Dave. It's really good to see you. Where you been all summer, pal?
I've been on the Celebrity Deathmatch tour, Sam.
Okay, I don't need the money yet, Dave, no.
Following the VMAs, Sammy wound up putting on a free show that same night at Irving Plaza in New York City, which I've been there. Very, very small venue compared to what they were doing that summer. I think the capacity is just a little bit over 1,100, and half of the tickets went to the city's police and fire departments. He was also joined on stage by Michael Anthony and Gary Cherone, who, by the way, I would not be shocked at all if Gary appeared on at least one show of this Best of All Worlds tour next summer. And honestly, while Loverboy is cool, I personally feel that Extreme would have been a phenomenal choice over Loverboy to open the Best of All Worlds tour. Obviously, this is a Van Halen-focused tour. Of course, Extreme's Nuno Bettencourt is heavily influenced by Eddie Van Halen. It just makes so much sense. Maybe they tried that, and it just didn't work out due to scheduling conflicts or whatever, but my opinion, this whole Sammy Hagar thing that he's doing with Extreme opening, holy shit, what a night that would have been. My God. Anyways, the tour was a financial success. Obviously, everybody knew it would be. But according to Hagar in a Guitar World interview, boy, I hate to ever say I'm sorry I did something, so I can't say I'm sorry I did it. But I certainly wouldn't do it again. Let's put it like that. While both frontmen would eventually go on to reunite with Van Halen at various points over the years following, considering how disastrous the Sam and Dave tour was, I find it absolutely baffling that in 2017, Hagar said that the only reason he would reunite with Van Halen is if Dave was a part of the tour too, saying at the time, "I think the fans would die and go to heaven. The competition for that would be great. He'd do Panama and Running with the Devil, and I'd be going, damn, I got to step it up. I'm up for it." I just find it insane that Sammy would say that even in 2017, which honestly, I mean, it was a while ago, but not all that long ago, all things considered. And now, like we talked about earlier, he's shitting on Dave on social media. And then just recently, I think earlier this year on Steve-O's Wild Ride podcast, he also had this to say when he was asked about the Sam and Dave tour. At that time, he didn't have a solo career, really. I mean, he did, but he wasn't selling out. I was selling out arenas. I was selling out amphitheaters as Sammy Hagar with the Wabos, and I had a solo career. Ask Mick Jagger. Ask Robert Plant. You can be the biggest band in the world, and you can't necessarily have a solo career. But I had a solo career. So when I joined the big band, I went back to my solo career. I'm good. I still sell a lot of tickets. Dave, he had that sort of a big album, one kind of a big album, but he didn't have a solo career. He was playing small places. So when he came in with me, he was making like 25 grand a night. I was making 150 grand a night. And they said, "Oh, you guys are going to make the same money. Dave gets to make 150. I said, he ain't fucking made 150 in his life except in Van Halen. But I said, I've got to do this. So I bent over backwards, and he still always tried to fuck with the rules. He's not a fun guy. He doesn't play well with others. I'm not sure what his problem is. He just always is about, how can I make this guy look bad? And not just me, in life. He's a chest-beating motherfucker. And God bless him, because the early stuff is frickin' great. I've tried to say, I thought he'd be a fun guy to know, but he ain't like that. He ain't like his persona. When you get around him, he ain't that guy. He's some other cat." Of course, according to Wolfgang Van Halen, that very tour was supposed to happen with a quote-unquote kitchen sink tour, including all Van Halen members past and present, that was supposedly supposed to take place in the summer of 2019, but never came to fruition as Eddie's health had tremendously declined, resulting in him, of course, tragically passing away in 2020. Well, I do think it would be amazing to see both Roth and Hagar, quote-unquote, together one last time. I just don't see it. We could spend hours going over the various jabs that Both of them, especially Sammy, have thrown at each other in the press. Nobody ever really knows what's going on with David Lee Roth, including himself. I mean, the guy, who knows? That guy lives in another planet. I mean, remember that video when he rolls up to the hotel room that they were blasting Van Halen in? He shows up to the hotel room, and the guys open the door. They don't even know who the fuck he is.
We heard some Van Halen here, and my name's David Lee Roth, and I'm right across the hallway. Want to know, we're on our way to EDC, but the fellas here were coming down the hallway, and they said, shit, we heard some Van Halen, and I said, no, shit. So we're your neighbors, guys. We're off to EDC. We're doing shit. And we heard one of the fellas said, I heard some Van Halen shit through the doorway. So I am Van Halen.
We'll be here still.
Outstanding. Fellas, my pleasure. Have a great night. Enjoy the Vegas stay. Small, tiny world.
Apologize now.
No, don't.
It's so funny. But anyways, I doubt Roth will even show up for one show. Obviously not going to be a part of the whole thing. That's silly to think that. And I get the vibe that he doesn't really want to be a part of anything where he's not the star of the show. Although, I guess a few years ago, he did open for Kiss. So, who knows? It's Van Halen. Anything Van Halen related, nothing but drama. All right, though, I gotta run. My fiance, who, by the way, really is named Jamie, is waiting for my love to, quote-unquote, walk into her pound cake right now. And she really will be crying when it's all said and done. So I gotta go. But thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more. And I will see you next time.